Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, May 12th, Mother's Day. And this is going to be a work day for me, a comic work day. Let's see. What do I want to do first? The topic today is going to be finding my script's bones. I'm going to explain a little bit more about what I'm talking about in a second. Maybe why don't we just start with, I thought we would switch back to 3 books from the library, something I was doing last time I was streaming. Just randomly grabbing books off my bookshelf or my nightstand or what have you, and just things I'm reading now or recently read or whatever. I was thinking though today that today it's going to be books. But I was thinking it may not always be books. I was thinking I'd also have a huge number of movies. I could start doing 3 movies from Gary's collection pretty easily. Could also be doing 3 video games. I don't know if I'll do that though, but movies are definitely on the table. Anyway, 3 books from the nightstand, what I'm reading right now. First of all, this is very appropriate for today's topic as well, or the channel in general. Steering the Craft, 21st Century Guide to Sailing the Sea of Story by, and this is the most important part, Ursula K. Le Guin. If you're not familiar with Le Guin, you should be. She's one of my favorite writers, one of my favorite fiction writers. A Wizard of Earthsea is probably my favorite fantasy novel of all time. I know, yes. Even considering The Hobbit, yes. Even considering Lord of the Rings, yes. Even considering, I think I do like Wizard of Earthsea best. I think it's a really, really lovely, interesting, skinny, great fantasy novel. She's got a lot of great work though. But anyway, these are her suggestions for writers. A little very straight and to the point book. What I love about it, in addition to her earthy, no nonsense writing tips, which is also kind of how I would describe her writing, is very like it's tough. I want to say earthy and no nonsense, but that almost suggests, I could imagine if someone hadn't read it, that to them it might sound like it doesn't have any artistry or poetry to it, and that's not true at all. But it's very, like, I couldn't even tell you the longest book she's ever written, but I would imagine it's comparable to this length. Like, she is very good at distilling it down to the most important and impactful stuff. Like, there's not a lot of fat on her work. Anyway, as I was saying, not only do I like her tips, she gives a lot of reading suggestions. So she'll be talking, like, I'll just give you an example of a section here. So one of the chapters is sentence length and complex syntax, okay? And when she's talking about great examples of authors who know how to do that in a particularly good way, she'll list books. It's like, you should look at this person, you should look at this person, you should look at this person. And what it's making me realize when I see all of her recommendations, they're all books I'm familiar with, and a lot of them I've never read, because there are a lot of the just great classics that if you didn't read in high school or college as a part of an assignment, if you're like me anyway, you probably haven't circled back to. And it's making me realize, like, I really need to get around to reading some of these books. I really need to get around to reading, you know, Jane Eyre or whatever, like these just great classics that can teach you so, first of all, are just great pieces of art. Second of all, can teach you so much about writing and storytelling, and that I've just never read. So that's number one here. Let's see, this one, kind of a silly fun one. Excuse the language. This is by Robert Guffey. Operation Mindfuck. Operation Mind Bleep. This is about the rise of the cult of QAnon, and all the kind of sociological, anthropological history of where it came from, and the earliest beginnings, and how it's evolved and what we're dealing with now. It's thoroughly depressing, as you might imagine, but it's also very interesting, and gives you a lot of context that helps make some of it make more sense. Though it doesn't make the pill go down any easier, it's, it gives you some context for it. Anyway, let's see here. And then finally, by Haley Campbell, All the Living and the Dead. This is by a journalist who went and spent a lot of time talking to people who their job, whatever they do, be it embalmers or executioners or crime scene people or whatever, people who are just regularly exposed to death, and their musings on it, their reaction to it, how it's changed their lives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, it's I got this as a gift. I'm actually, this bookmark is, there's two bookmarks in here, but I'm almost done with it. It's very, very good, very, very interesting. I think I actually got it for either my birthday or Christmas, which is some time ago. And the reason I'm still working through it is I find it's one of those books where I'll read a chunk, and like a small chunk, and I'll have like interesting moment with it. And I kind of want to chew on that and not just bulldoze ahead and get more stuff coming in. Like I kind of want to sit with the little moment that I got from that little chunk and let it digest, and then read a little bit more. So some books are like that. For me, this one is like that. Okay, so those were 3 books. Okay, so there's going to be 2 things today. I'm going to talk about the topic, and then I'm going to do the little technical experiment that I referenced, I think, in the description and when I posted about this. And I'm trying right now in real time to decide which I want to do first. We'll get real comic business out of the way, because the technical experiment is not comic business. It may someday be something I can use for real comic business. Today it will not be. So let's talk about DvsM 2001. This is the script in its current form. If you watched 2 weeks ago, my last episode, still entirely too long. And it reads as entirely too long. Which in a way is a good thing. Because I think it would be really demoralizing and stressful for me to have this fat of a script and be thinking to myself, I don't know what I can cut. It's all got to be there. Like the story doesn't, like if I displace one part of the story, the whole thing's going to collapse. That is not the case with this. As I'm reading it, I just know, like, I don't need this. I really don't need this. Or this is taking way too long. Or I bet there's a way to, economize what I'm doing here. Which is good. Like, I want that, because I don't think this should be a ginormous DvsM story. I think it should be fairly lean. That being said, I am firmly in the having to kill your darlings stage of this writing process, where while I know this is too long, and while I know that I'm not going to need all of it, and that not all of it's going to survive all the way to a final draft or ever be drawn in a comic for a comic, I do like all of it. And so that's the place I'm at, where every part I'm reading, I'm thinking, there's something here. This tells me something about the characters. This gives me a sense of the world. This gives me a sense of the larger DvsM story and what's going on with the war and the sci-fi and the lore aspects. This is sometimes, and these will be the things that'll be easiest to cut. Sometimes I'm very like, it's like, oh, this is showing off some research I did. This has a little tidbit of, you know, something I learned when I was researching special forces people or whatever that I want to work in there just to show that I know this thing. Like I said, that's the stuff that's easy to cut because it's more from when you really reduce it, it's more you amusing yourself or trying to impress other people with the research you did. That's not a great reason to keep something in a story. Anyway, all of this hulking 40-page draft is stuff that I kind of like. And I could imagine a version of the story where any one part of it would be a necessary element. And that's what I'm going to be working on today. Today, after I log off, I'm probably going to brush my teeth and put on some jeans and go somewhere to do work on this, which I'm going to lay out for you right now. I'm going to be going through this and really trying to identify what is the story, what is the strongest version of this story. When I think of the platonic ideal of DvsM 2001, and I think about what is just the perfect version of it that I'll never tell, because you can never do a perfect anything. But when I picture what it could be, what are the necessary elements of that? And then looking at this, going through and basically literally highlighting, I guess, this would be part of it, this would be part of it, this would be part of it. And then turning a very critical gaze to anything I didn't highlight and really making it justify its existence. So this is where this came from. It was an exercise I invented for myself through the help of Rick Rubin, once again mentioning Rick Rubin, Creative Act, a way of being. Months ago when I read this book, I was struck by this 3-page chapter titled Essence. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I'm going to read a relevant paragraph or two that made me think, oh, this might be a useful exercise for me to do once I have a draft for DvsM 2001, just to see what it looks like. And that's what I think I'm going to be doing today, basically. So he's talking about, I'm going to read the first paragraph of this chapter, and then I'm going to skip ahead to the part that basically I'm going to be my jumping off point. All the work we do, no matter how intricate, holds an underlying essence, a core identity or fundamental structure, like a skeleton supporting flesh. Some might call it an isness. Okay, so the idea is, what is this thing? What is the spine of it? What are the bones of it? Yes, there's muscles and organs and skin and everything else. And yeah, we need those things. But let's just try to imagine, let's just put on our Scott Circlin X-ray specs and look at your script and try to identify, like, this is the most fundamental through line that I need to always have my eye on as I'm going through this story. This always has to be present, okay? Now, this is the part that I'm going to try and use as my exercise today. Distilling a work to get it as close to its essence as possible is a useful and informative practice. Notice how many pieces you can remove from the work you're making. Wait, I'm sorry, I left out a word here. Notice how many pieces you can remove before the work you're making ceases to be the work you're making. Okay, I'm going to read that again since I messed it up the first time. Notice how many pieces you can remove before the work you're making ceases to be the work you're making. Okay? Refine it to the point where it is stripped bare in its least decorative form, yet still intact, with nothing extra. Sometimes the ornamentation can be of use, often not. Less is generally more. Now, what he's not saying here, what I would add is that kind of stripped down, most fundamental version of your story is probably not going to be something you would ever show anybody. Just like I wouldn't show this rough draft to anybody. Because it's not going to be too laid bare. It's going to be too basic. It's going to be too simplified and uninteresting and stark, I think, at least in this case. But like I said, I think it will help me if I go through with that sort of thought in mind. Let's imagine, just for an exercise, let's say I had to cut 75% of this. Now that's absurd. But if I had to cut 75% of it, what has to stay so it still works as a story? And so the character still makes the arc I need him to make. And all the other characters around him are identifiable and acting in a rational, logical way that just sort of makes sense. Like what do I have to preserve? And that will help me figure out more clearly what I don't really need. I might want it there. I might like it there. I might end up keeping it because I think it adds something, some color or some feeling or some voice or whatever. But I'll know very clearly, like, I don't actually need this. But I'm suspecting there's going to be big sections in this. I know just from rereading this last night that basically would be very, very good and interesting and useful and fun or whatever for a story with a different ambition and a different point than the one I want to tell. And I think going through this exercise will help me. It'll see, like, you know, this whole conversation they're having here, it's cool. I like it. I did a good job writing it. It's for some other story. It's not advancing this one. It's not making it clearer to the reader once they get to the end what this thing was about or why it matters or what this character is going through now or why the things unfolded the way they did or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's the plan today. I've got, let's see here, I'm going to have to pull out. They're all over there. All my different colored highlighters. My initial thought is I'm going to go through this, and one color of highlighter will be, these are the parts plot-wise that get you from A to B to C to D, all the way to the end. Like, this is, and it's very, very, very strictly to plot. This helps you understand what's going on. So they show up at this place. They hike up into the mountains. They make camp. Like, this is like, I need, like, these are things I need. I need these landmarks for the reader to understand, okay, this is what's happening. Okay, you know, I'm following it. I understand where they are and how they got there, and you know, it makes sense. With a different color highlighter, I think I'm going to be going through and marking, these are the critical steps of this character's arc. Like, we meet this person, they express this sort of feeling, they share this sort of idea or thought, this thing happens to them, now they feel this way, they have this conversation with this guy, which kind of makes it more explicit, and then the character ends up here. I'll be going through and marking that, like, this is these are the important landmarks of this character's journey through the story. And those have to be there for the character and the arc and everything to make sense. DvsM ultimately is a very character-heavy, character-focused series. So those are just as important, if not more so, than just basic how is a character getting from A to how are the characters, how's the story evolving? And then I might do third highlighter of stuff that I just want to play with, doing a machete cut. What if I just, even if it pains me, even if I'm not sure if it would work, what if I just cut this whole part? What if I cut this whole part? Like, how would it go? How would it read? There's another thing that, this is the trick. This is something that's been moving around a lot. When I was rereading it last night, I mentioned in the last stream, one of the challenges of this one is I've got 6 characters talking to each other, interacting. And so you try to come up with, this guy is basically like this. This guy kind of represents this sort of thing. This guy is like, and you're trying, first of all, for everyone to act in a way that seems consistent with however you've caricatured this person. But also you're trying to give everyone a moment. You don't want any characters that are just always there in the background and never doing anything and never saying anything and you never get a feel for. Like, I want every character to have presence in the story. At least a little bit. At least, you know, one good line here, you know, or one good little hero moment, or one something. But sometimes what I've done is I have a conversation I want to play out between a few different people. And it's not set in stone who's saying what. I know the exchange I want. I know, like, the ideas I want represented. I want someone to say something like this, and then I want someone else to respond with this, and then I want someone else to respond to that response and go in that direction. So I know the conversation, I just haven't necessarily settled on who's saying what. And sometimes, as the story is getting clearer and clearer in my brain, sometimes I'll be reading conversations like, it doesn't make any sense that, you know, Ted would say this. This seems like something that Chip would say. Like, if Chip is like this, Chip would be saying something like that, you know, and why is Patty, you know, like, I mean, you're kind of like, but then you have to make sure, like, it's like, all right, so now Chip is saying this. I've decided Chip is going to say this line. You have to then, like, go all the way through and make sure that you didn't screw anything up where now someone is like, remember that time you said, and they're talking to the guy who originally said it, or something like that. You know, you can break it in ways. The other thing I'm realizing, and I think this is something, this will be one of the first things I want to look at today. I have a conversation in here where one guy is taking a very strong and important to the plot and important to the character arc position on a thing. I believe blankety blankety blank, okay? And it's very important, and I need the reader to, like, this is going to be, I've got to make it apparent when I'm doing the comic that this is going to help you understand the main character's arc if you understand the sentiment. But I had somebody else saying it, and I had basically the main character co-signing it. And I was laying in bed last night, getting ready to go to bed, thinking, why don't I have, if it's important to the main character's story, why isn't the main character saying it? But that's a big change. Now, it's a good change. I think it'll tighten it up and make it more efficient, rather than having this guy say something and this guy basically agree. And, like, this is adding dialogue to it. Why don't I just have this guy say out loud I think this, and then you can see the difference between where he is today, how he feels differently. I don't know if any of this is making sense. I know it has to be a little weird because I can't get into plot details and I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm just thinking out loud of work I need to do on the script today. So that's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'll probably spend a few hours at least today sitting in a coffee shop or something. I don't know where, a library. I'm excited to do this by hand, to get away from the monitor, to go through with highlighters and red pens and stuff and scratch stuff out and make notes in the margins and say, what if I move this up here? And you know, is this clear enough? And wow, I kind of just, there's another thing I noticed when I was reading it last night, especially toward the end, I think because I was getting tired when I was writing the script. I felt like I was trying to just blast stuff out and I wasn't giving it the time it needed to make sense. It's a little bit of just covering ground. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, the end. It kind of feels like that in the last 5 or 10 pages. So while I'm gutting a lot of the early stuff, I think I need to fill out a lot of the end game stuff a little so it doesn't feel so rushed. At the same time, it's not so bad because I think DvsM, I think all of them have a little bit of, once the story is done, the end, we're out of here. I don't do so much of these slow wind downs for the reader. Mostly because I don't think any of them have necessitated that. And I think that's also even though each DvsM is in theory standalone, they are very episodic, where I don't feel like I need to take pages and pages winding down the story each time because there's another story coming. Now, the very last one, when I do DvsM 6, maybe that will have a little bit more of a curtain call, kind of just a moment recognizing this is the end of the journey. But with these, I don't worry about it so much. Paul, how are you doing? It's good to see you. Okay. So that's what I'll be doing today. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Anything else I want to get into today? Oh, there were probably some footnotes from the last stream. One was I mentioned when I was talking about it being DvsM 2001, and yes, there's the very famous movie 2001, and does that give me any pause? Did I ever think about changing it? Yes, a little. And I alluded in the last stream, but there's reasons why I can't change it, and I might get into it, and I never got into it. The reason basically is, and this doesn't really spoil anything, that's why I'm okay explaining it now, even alluding to the fact that there's an explanation. At this stage of the DvsM story, the Great Dinosaur Martian War is kind of winding down. The soldiers in this haven't actually seen an alien in maybe a few months. The battles, there was a peak, like sort of the great battle of the war sometime after 97, which is the latest in the timeline we've seen so far, but before this one. And it's just been kind of petering out. And at the same time, in the real world, this is a few months post September 11, and there's all this talk about like, we're going to go to Afghanistan. And these soldiers are realizing that there's going to be this change, that they're going to be going from what they have been doing for some of them, 10 years, 15 years, and going to something more conventional and moving on from this strange chapter of their lives, and that's part of the story. It's an important element of what some of these characters are going through. So that's why it kind of has to, yeah. And so in theory, could it be 2002? I did want that proximity to September 11th, because I thought that would be just a convenient time to like, okay, so it's very clear that this is going in a different, it hasn't happened yet. It's not like some of them have already gone off to Afghanistan or the Middle East, elsewhere in the Middle East. It's just that it's seeing where this is going. I think that's going to be important for this. So 2001. Let's see here. Just popped in to say what's up to my homie Gary Hizzy. Keep it real, 100%. Peace out, dog. That's exactly how Jim Lujan talks all the time. All the time. What else? Footnotes from last time. Oh, there was a. So we were talking last time about my personal reluctance to talk too much about tools with younger or less experienced artists. i.e., not talking about these are the pens I use, this is the paper I use, this is the pen, these are the pencils, this is the program I use. Let me show you all my layer. I care. Watch me. Like I have, and I want to say this every time. No problem. It's not a weird moral objection where I have a problem with other people doing it. I just don't want to do it. And I tried to explain in the previous video, it's because I feel like, in my experience, I'm not going to even say, you know, a few or most or whatever, but some younger or inexperienced artists, in my estimation, will get a little lost in that. And I don't think it's particularly important. I think it's a distraction from what is more important, which is just throwing yourself into it and starting to learn it. You know, I mean, if my nephew came to me and said, what kind of pen should I use? I'd be looking at my desk and I'd say like this pen, just use this piece of shit, cheap ballpoint. Like it just start drawing. You'll figure it out. What kind of paper to use? I don't know. Here's my abandoned draft of DvsM 2001. Turn it over and draw on the back. Like whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Okay. And afterward, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about how to articulate this better. And the analogy it came out, I was like, God, I wish I thought of that at the time, because that would have perfectly explained. To me, it's like, if I came to you, let's say you play the guitar, okay? Let's say you're very good at it. And I came to you and said, I think I want to learn how to play the guitar. So I'm going to go buy a guitar this weekend. And I'm going to buy the one. Which one do you think I should buy? Actually, wait. Which one did John Lennon play? Like, I want to get John Lennon's guitar. You know, and then I go out and spend $1,500 or $2,000, whatever, on some guitar. Okay. That's what I'm objecting to. To me, if you're just learning the guitar, there is going to be no meaningful difference between you plucking away at some $100 or $150 used thing you picked up from a Salvation Army and some $2,000 guitar. You don't have the skill level to make that difference meaningful, okay? You need to know what you're doing, at least on a certain level, before you can even take advantage of the quality of the instrument, okay? That's why, so that's me. Now, granted, a lot of people probably watching my channel, subscribe to my channel, they're not newbies. They're not babes in the woods. They're not these people who are like, I've never tried to draw before. What should I do? I understand, you know, it's just me. Like, I'm going to focus my attention on certain things. I'm not going to focus it on tools and techniques. That doesn't mean I never will. I could very easily see some future where I'll do one episode of like, these are the pens I like. These are the colored pencils I like. These are the markers I like. I like this kind of tooth on my paper. Like, I mean, again, I'm not dogmatic about it. It's not like, oh, absolutely not, never talk about it, unfollow anyone who does. That's not it. I've always felt it really doesn't matter. I have seen phenomenal work. Like if you follow, for example, one of the artists I like a lot, Frank Cho, he's got a whole book of basically nude figure studies he's done with cheap ballpoint pens. And they're fantastic. You know, I have stuff in my portfolio from going back to like when I was a teenager that I did the back on that really slick, awful photocopy paper we used to have in the 80s and 90s. It's just with ballpoint pen, the worst tools on the worst mediums, and still looks great. Still looks like something I would keep. You know, I don't think it matters so much when it comes to just normal everyday drawing. Now, if you're trying to do something specific, like let's say you're Scott Circlin and you want to do wax packs, you need to get into those details. Like the details are very, very, very important. But like for what I'm doing here, like I don't like, and again, I don't want to encourage what I see as a unhelpful fascination or fixation on tools. With, again, this is very important. I'm trying to be very careful here. Younger and or inexperienced artists. Those are the ones that I just don't want to talk about that with. And I don't want to, you know, I don't want to encourage this fascination and fixation on it's, you know, someone who wants to take a fencing class and so they buy a, you know, $5,000 katana or something. It's like, what are you doing? No. Fundamentals. Don't worry about it. Anyway, let's see here. I would love to guest one day with a topic, killing your precious ideas. Do you know how we always say it's hard to cut favorite ideas in order? Yes. That's what I'm going to be doing a lot, I think, for the next couple of weeks, is killing precious ideas. I know I have entire conversations in this, like that go multiple pages of the script that I really like, that I really, really like. And I just know reading them, like, I don't need this. All this is just adding length. And it's going to be tough. This is where drawing your own work helps. This is where knowing, because I'm in the past, I've talked about there's writer Gary and there's artist Gary, and those are usually pretty segregated. But right now there is a little bit, the Venn diagram between those two is just barely overlapped, where artist Gary is reading this draft a little bit and saying, why the fuck would I draw this? Like, do we need this? Like, is this important? This is going to be weeks of drawing this one part you're talking about. Like, why is it that important? How is this serving the story? Like, if I was just passing this off to someone I was going to pay to draw it and I had the money to pay people to draw things, maybe I would be going through this less critically. I don't know. But it is tough. This right now, this is the Lord of the Rings extended edition of DvsM 2001, the script right here, where just everything is in it. And there's a cleaner, sharper, better, more polished, more focused, more impactful story in here. And I think that's the most important thing that I'm trying to keep in mind here, that, you know, these are such weird cliched words and phrases, but more sometimes is just more, and it can dilute. Last time I was talking about this analogy of, imagine I had a glass, let's say I have this, it's half filled with coffee, and I just start adding water to it. And it's still coffee, it's still coffee, it's still coffee. At some point, it's just not. But there was a great half cup of coffee in there. If I topped this off with water, that's the script right now. I need to get back to half a cup of delicious cartel coffee. If you're not in Phoenix or California, you've never had cartel coffee, you're missing out. It's the best. I can't go back. Okay. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Or it gets you too precious. Like, I would draw, but I don't want to mess it up because I have the wrong paper. Stop it. Stop it. Don't be precious. Start drawing. And something I said last time that I want to amplify again, it's such a cliche, but you fucking something up because you have the wrong pen, the wrong marker, the wrong paper, whatever. You're trying to figure out quill pens and you're running your hand through them, or you're making them scratch and spit, or whatever the thing is going to teach you so much more about drawing than sitting and buying exactly the right thing and getting the right paper and not having those little screw ups. Like, there's a difference between, I'm sure Corey probably knows vocabulary to attach to this and could talk all about it, but there's a difference between, and you find this especially, not to sound like an old Gen X or an old man, but seriously, there's a difference between knowing something because you read it and knowing something experientially. You did it, okay? A huge difference. There are lots of things in life where someone can tell you something and you even accept it as true. You go, okay. But until you do it yourself and screw up, it doesn't have that same edge to it in your brain and in your memory and in the pit of your stomach. I would honestly, if I was an art teacher in like middle school or high school, I think I'd be trying to get kids to draw on fucking cardboard with burnt pieces of, Palo Santo wood or something, scratch. Like, I want you to fumble and struggle and have to try and figure out this weird terrain I've given you. Like, that's going to teach you so much more than perfect conditions. And if you're waiting for perfect conditions, again, that becomes a big philosophical thing where we all know and or were a creative who has not been working because they're waiting for perfect conditions. I got to get the office redone. Once I move all the stuff out of the closet, I want to paint that room first. Once the kids go off to school, once my busy time at work settles down, blah, 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 blah. You're never going to do it. I'm sorry. I just don't. This is you. And it's just because there will never be a perfect time. Never. I hate to break it to you. It'll never happen. And if you have that mentality, I think more likely than not, if you do finally find this weird eye of the storm where everything settles down, you have all this time, you might be so cowed by the idea of distraction that all you want to do is like sit and enjoy the stillness, and then that's now your excuse to not work. It's like, I never get a break. You're just going to have to throw yourself in whatever's going on in your life, whatever tools you have, wherever your headspace is. Like, I'm sorry. It's at the end of the day, it's button chair. It's always just button chair. That's the only rule. The only rule. Not what pen to use, not what book to read, not what approach to take, not how to write your script. It doesn't matter. A million ways to skin a cat. What matters is you've got to just put in the time. You're not going to catch a fish unless you're sitting in the boat with your line in the water. That's it. Don't be the guy sitting on the internet picking out lures for 15 years. Just get out there and figure it out. Like, it's okay. I'm done. I think those were all the footnotes from last time. There was the big AI conversation. I feel like I said everything I ever wanted to say about AI and more in the last Artcasters episode. You can see the rest there. And maybe We'll never talk about it again. Okay. Let's see here. Paul's incapable of putting out a bad idea. Paul, where are we at with the new book? Is it available to order? Is it going to be available to order soon? Where are we at? I don't want to miss it when it happens. I hope I haven't missed it. My ideas are uncircumvented. Oh. Do you see what I have? Do you see what I have to deal with? Do you see this? Okay. No, we can't. If it's on your channel, yes, absolutely. In fact, I insist. Not bad. Not bad. Well done. Very good. He can make things go a little cattywampus. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's any other comic business to attend to before I do my technical test, streaming test. I've already started collecting reference images because the script is far enough along to know I'm going to need this, I'm going to need that. I need to see what this looks like. So I've been just doing a lot of Googling, large image, right click save as, right click save as, right click save as. And I've got a big folder already. DvsM 2001, The Soldier. In the folder are subfolders, clothing, weapons and gear, like dinosaur references, like just, like all these different things that I'm sorting reference images into to help me get a picture in my head of, I've got, for every character, all the 6 characters. Now there will be, as always, live model references. These characters will look vaguely, in some cases, probably very closely, in other cases, more vaguely, like people I'm going to draft, no pun intended, for the Soldier comic to pose for me. I hope they all agree. I've written it. Basically, I've been picturing them in my head looking like particular people that I hope they'll agree to help me. They'll be okay with their character. They'll be okay with what their character does. I guess I might as well talk about this now, just briefly. This how do I want to start with this? So to me, DvsM 97 is it's a comic where the 2 main characters that we are spending our time with are women. And I feel like Jenny's story in particular is a woman's story, not a women's story. Like, she doesn't represent all women everywhere, but I do believe Jenny represents a sort of female experience. This comic, even more so than 75, is very much men. It's 6 men together, and it's a particular kind of man. There's a lot of machismo. These are soldiers, these are special forces guys, they know each other. It's set in 2001. When I think about, and when I therefore write, how men rib each other, tease each other, give each other shit, kind of mercilessly. I think a lot of it will be harsh to the ears of 2024 people. I remember having been, like, I was in, junior high in the 80s and high school in the early 90s, and, college. I was out of college before, in the 90s, I was graduated from college. I remember how men would talk to each other, how I would talk to men, and how men would talk to me. And there are ways they go after each other in this that, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm going to get canceled. And I don't even know what will end up in the final draft, but there's stuff that I feel very strongly like this is how this sort of man talks to another sort of man. This is the sort of shit that men say when there's no women around. That I don't know. I don't know how people are going to react to it. And I'm expecting already some people might read a draft at some point. And some people might be like, are you really going to have him say that? Is that really the word he's going to throw out there? But again, to me, like, DvsM has always been like, this is what real people are like. And I don't want to... I don't want to shy away from that. Anyway, it's going to be, I don't know. I don't think it's going to affect what I write at all. And there's no way I'm going to remove stuff just because, like, ugh, ugh, like that's a word that's fallen out of favor. But I need to write it in a way where I think it's also very, not just clear to me, but very clear to the reader. Like, this is basically how a bunch of militarized jocks would talk to each other in 2001. And just accept that. I don't know. Like, it just came up when I was talking to Mary about elements of the script the other day, and she was I could tell she was kind of like, whoa. But, anyway, let's see here. More on that probably in the months to come. Let's see here. Oh, I'll be ordering it today then. That's exciting. Congratulations. I can't wait. Can't wait to get my copy. Okay. Here's the unrelated to indie comic test. Something I've just been curious about. So if you followed me for any amount of time, if you know me personally, you know that I love a good retro video game. And for that matter, I love a good modern video game. But I was curious with StreamYard and with my emulator, is it possible for me to live stream playing an old Nintendo game? Like, is that something that can be done? I'm just curious. Like, again, I may never use this. This is not going to be like new direction for the channel. Gary plays old NES games. Like, that's not, but I was just curious, like, is that possible and how would that work? And does it work? So we're going to try that right now. We'll see what happens. Oh, wait, let's see here. I was a pretty raunchy dude growing up. I was shocked when I worked with a bunch of cocktails. Yeah, I mean, that's also an element of like when people feel like they can just sort of say whatever they want. Here, just to add some context. One of my favorite, if Jim and I ever do top 5 cable and streaming shows, I'm not going to say where it would be on the list. I don't know. I'd have to sit and think about it. But I guarantee you in my top 5 would be Deadwood. Deadwood is, I love it so much. I've been meaning to rewatch it recently. Every few years I'll go in, because it's only like 3 seasons. Every few years I'll go through and just watch it all again. I really think when I pause like this, it's because I'm checking, like, do I really say this? Do I really mean this? Or am I just saying it? I do really mean this. I think it's probably the best written show I've ever seen. I can't think of anything else that's close. Well, I can think of things that are close, but to me, it's not even I'm not even doing this with one other show. Deadwood for sure. After that, there's a bunch of people tied for second, but Deadwood is the best written show. I adored it. It was challenging for a lot of TV watchers because the language was oppressive. It was the most vulgar TV show you'll ever watch to date. Like it's just not even close. Okay. People who are hip to Deadwood, they know like Deadwood is the shit. Deadwood is amazing. But the language is crazy. I mean, there's the number of F and C bombs per episode is probably in the dozens. It's nonstop. But what's fascinating about it is it's just sort of woven in, and the writing is so good. At first it's a little shocking and jarring. You kind of quickly become numb to it, where you don't even know. It's woven in. It's not just language for language's sake. It's woven in a way where it, on Mother's Day, to quote something my mom said once, it's like, sometimes people use bad words because they can't think of a better one. They're not smart enough or well-read enough to think of a better one. Other times, fuck is precisely the correct word. And I think when you're watching Deadwood, you see like that's precisely the word you would want to use in this situation. Milch, the writers and the show creators' motivation for doing that, a lot of people they checked out for all sorts of reasons. They didn't like the language, they didn't like the content, whatever. But some people were like, no way were people in a mining town in Deadwood in that era dropping the C word all over the place and the F word all over the place every time they were talking. No, correct, they weren't. Milch's reason for doing that was these little mining towns, and Deadwood included, were known in that era for astonishingly harsh vulgarity. Like, just is unbelievable how these people talked for the era. So for the era, it might have been a lot of damn and hell and bastard and she bitch and like weird, these kind of things that now would sound corny. And he wanted the watcher, the viewer, to have the same reaction to the language today as you would have had then, so he can't use all these sort of silly old safe bad words. To get that same effect, we've got to use modern equivalents to really, jar you and shock you. And there, he's done interviews about it. He's passed away, but he had done interviews about it where he was saying really interesting stuff about the ethnographic significance of talking in a certain way, that it's an identifier, that if I talk like this, the tribe I'm in, what I'm about, about where I'm from and how I run, like all that. Okay. So in these mining towns, if you just swear unbelievably and you kind of basically are beating your chest with your language at all times, like it's sending the signal, like that's who I am, that's where I come from. And you can see modern equivalents now, like with inflections and people who talk very, very California, or people talk very, very gay, or people who talk whatever, like ultimately the argument would be anthropologically that this is a signal. This is to show membership in a group. So you can tell without me having to get into it, like who I am, what's my tribe, where I'm from. It's really interesting. Anyway, circling back to DvsM 2001, there's a bit of that in my decision of like, I want these guys to talk like I remember guys talking to each other when I was younger, and especially in that era where there's a lot of cruelty in the language. There's a lot of words that we do not use anymore. There's a lot of homophobia and like just weird, strange, like charged humor and insults in their everyday banter. I think that represents a lot of what a lot of men were like then, a lot of men like today, but also this kind of guy, this kind of energy, this kind of locker room weird energy, you know, that like I want the reader, when they're seeing these guys interact, they're getting a very clear message, like, again, this tribal indicator. This is who we are. We're different from you. You don't talk like this. We talk like this. And like, that's why I'm inclined to keep all the language, even if I'm personally uncomfortable with it, and personally not looking forward to having to field people's reactions to it. If it's a little bit like people's reactions to Deadwood, where it's like, oh, like I can't believe like this is just trash and dirty. Like, so we'll see. It's not, and it's not wall to wall like Deadwood, but there's elements. There's parts in it where it's like, it was hard to write this, and I know some people it's going to be hard for them to read it, and I get it. But The Wire, so The Wire is, I've only seen bits of, and it's one that I've always meant to go back and watch, because everyone raves about it, and the bits I've seen I really, really, really liked. So it's possible, I guess, I could watch The Wire and say, okay, now we're in a death match between Deadwood and The Wire. But not having seen all of The Wire right now, Deadwood is, you know, incredible to me. Paul didn't notice. Yeah, that's how Paul talks all the time, just like Deadwood. Yes, yeah, it is the most Shakespearean vulgarity, wall to wall. Like, it's, these characters are talking like, you know, the sailors and the you know, the gutter scrapers of Merchant of Venice. Like, it's just unbelievable how filthy but also beautiful everything they're saying is. Like, it's the most ornately crafted dialogue with sheer vulgarity sprinkled throughout. It's amazing. Also, just great characters, great stories, really fun to watch. And I love Westerns anyway, so Deadwood is pretty great. Okay, let's do the tech test. So I have my emulator open. I want to see, we're going to do this. Present. I want to see how this works. Share screen. Okay, so I need to do a quick Chrome adjust. And be able to record elements of screen. Okay, we'll see. It's possible. It just told me that you may have to close Chrome and reopen before this will take effect. So if that's the case, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to close this and restart a live stream to test. Probably, maybe I would tonight just to see. But if that's the case, if this doesn't work, then probably next stream we'll try again. But we'll give this a try. Okay, so let's see here. Window. Share. Chrome is system preferences. Yeah, I think it's not going to let me because it did not have permissions. Let's see. Let's try this again. Share audio, share text. In system settings. Good. I don't think it's going to let me do it without rebooting Chrome. And this is, again, not important enough to me to log off and create a whole new stream. No, okay. So not this time. Perhaps if I'm highly motivated, just with the curiosity of this, what does this icon do? Edit layout. That's strange. I've never seen this before. Whoa. Are you seeing that? That's strange. Okay. What does this do? New layout, edit layout. I realize I haven't streamed in a while, and there's all sorts of strange new little doodads in here that I don't know what they do. Gosh, I still am very curious if this works, but again, I don't want to just log off and recreate, like create a new stream. Okay, this will be my reward to myself for spending a day industriously working on the script. This evening, we're going to do a retro gaming test, which is actually consistent with my normal day-to-day life, where I will give myself a carrot, a reward for being productive. So if I get serious work on the script done today, I will reward myself with some retro gaming tonight. What time is it? 10:38. 8 p.m. I'm going to set up a new stream. I'm writing it down. Retro game test. I will set up a new, scheduled broadcast. I totally understand if nobody cares about this. I'm just curious. I was just thinking, because I watch a lot of people playing video games on YouTube, and I've just been curious, is that something I can do through StreamYard? This is what I would be interested in. I know, for example, I can just share a window and you can see the game being played. That's not that interesting to me. What I'm curious about is through these, you can't see them. I'm pointing at it like you can see them. There's these different windows, like if you're broadcasting with somebody else, if you're sharing the screen with other people, can I do it where you see me, I'm gonna maybe down here, and then the rest of this is the game screen. Can you hear me talk, and can you hear the game? Is that something that's very easy to do? Now, I know everyone said before you send me things, I know it's technically do, like, I know that can be done. I'm just curious, can it be done all within StreamYard? I don't have to think about it. I don't have to download any new thing. I don't have to run 2 programs at once. I don't, can I just share screen, pick where like I'm part of it and the screen is up there, all the audio works, like no one, like I'm not muted or the game isn't muted, like it all just happens with minimal fuss? That's what I'm curious about. I know that I can do all sorts of things with OBS and stuff and make that work and make that happen, just like everybody else on YouTube does. I'm just curious, is this something that right out of the box like this, I can play Contra or Castlevania or something and someone can watch me? Which would, of course, would be very fascinating for everyone. Again, this is just an experiment. I'm just curious. I'm just a curious guy. Is that something that can be done? Is that something I can do? We're going to find out tonight at 8 p.m. Probably just a little short broadcast, but just to see. Let's see here. Can I? I don't even know what happens. I mean, I would be willing to do that if I knew it wouldn't just stop the stream. Like if I close, that's probably a Googleable thing. If I'm streaming and I close Chrome, does it just end the stream? Let's look. StreamYard, Chrome, close browser. I'm going to search a little differently. I'll just do it like a question. If I close my Chrome browser, will StreamYard stream end? Oh, look at Reddit. What happens if I close my browser while live streaming a video with an encoder? Okay, if I stream an event with the encoder, do I need to? The stream won't end if you close the browser window. The browser is really more of a place to monitor the status of the stream now. Is that correct? Or is that just somebody's answer? Let's see here. You know what? Maybe. I'm going to try it. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. I'm going to try and close Chrome and come back in. If it ends this stream, thanks for coming by. Have a good Sunday. Tune in at 8 p.m. if you'd like to see me try and do this again. But I may be right back. If it doesn't die, if you're just looking at a black live stream, be patient. It should only take, I mean, seconds. It's me killing Chrome and redoing it. So just stay right there. But if it does, if it ends this stream, if it says like straight done, new broadcast tonight. All right. Let's see what happens for science. Let's just see for the science. Let's do some science. Let's do some fucking science today. Okay, hold on just 1 second. Here we go. This is probably what it's like when people die and get brought back to life. It's probably exactly like this. Okay. All right. Well, now let's try what I want to try. Oh, yes. Happy Mother's Day, Dee Dee. Share screen. Window. Okay. Now, okay. So now this is where I'm going to need help from the chat. I'm going to try and load up and play a game. And we're going to test the audio. I'm assuming the audio is all going to sound fine to me, but I need to know what it sounds like to you guys. So let's see here. We're going to try. What should we try? We have all the Nintendo games in the world here. All, of course, purchased officially, and there's no strange piracy or shenanigans going on here, I assure you. We're going to look at, we're going to do Castlevania, good classic Castlevania. I'm not going to sit and play this for hours, don't worry. Here's the challenge. Here's the challenge to myself and to make this a reasonable test. I will play until I run out of lives. I will not continue. Like I got one bite of the apple, basically. Why am I not seeing it? This is just scrolling too fast. Okay, here we go. Castlevania. We're going to restart. Oh, this is interesting. So, I'm just coming up with quirks here. So the way open emu work, okay, well, actually here, wait. Do you hear those sounds? Do you hear those whip sounds? Anyone? You hear the game, and you're hearing me talk. Oh, fascinating. Okay, so what we're gonna do, what's interesting is if I bring the browser to the front, the way open emu, however they would pronounce it, I guess it'd be emu because it's open emulation. The way it works is if you don't have that window active, it pauses the game. So I'm going to minimize my Google, and I'm going to not minimize it, but make it smaller. I'm going to make this, I want both visible so I can see what the hell's going on. Okay. Let's see if this works. All right. Wow. It is that easy. Is it laggy? I can't tell. Tell me if you're seeing. Here, let's go to. I promise this is not going to be a regular thing. I promise. I just wanted to see if this is something I could do. This is the worst thing that would happen, Paul, and anyone else who's watching. This is the worst case scenario of this is that once in a while I will do a separate stream of playing an old game and talking about it, but it will not affect comic work or comic streams, and I will not be crossing streams. There won't be, just for my own personal taste and aesthetic, there's not going to be a thing where you see a new stream of DvsM 2001 work and you go to it and, oh my God, he's playing Legend of Zelda. That's not the plan. That's not what I want to do. If I start screwing around with this as like a thing, there'll be a whole new playlist of Gary Retro Gaming, and you'll know very clearly what you're getting into, and you won't feel like, oh wait, I thought we were going to be talking about scripts today and Gary's saving a princess. You know what I mean? Okay, so we're going to give this a try. Here's the next question I have for people who are watching. I want to tell me. So when I whip this fire here, it will do like a crunch sound. Tell me if it looks like it's timed right. Tell me if it looks like it's happening late or about the same, or, you know, just if there's anything that looks weird with the sound sync, because I can't really do anything else that's a clear, obvious sound. So, okay. Did anything about that look a little weird, or does it look like it's timed right? I can tell there's a little lag, just a little, where it's a little imperceptible. It's almost imperceptible, but there's a little bit of I push the button to jump, and a fraction of a second later, the jump happens. There's just a little bit of that. Probably because I'm doing a couple things up. But... okay. I'm content this works. I'm not ready to do... I'm seeing Paul's comments out of the corner of my eye. Paul, I promise this is not going to be a thing. I'm just seeing if it's possible. Here's the new thing, because I probably would play this entirely too long. This is the new. I'm going to play to the end of the first level. That's what we're doing. And I'm already, I think, about a third of the way. Oh, I didn't want the... okay. I didn't want the watch. The watch is a bad weapon. Look at that. Look at that. Finding secrets. Getting all the points. I'm almost there. We're almost done with this test. Oh, that bat. Ambushed. Lame. Okay. Oh, I knew that was going to blow that. Okay. I'm just goofing off. Here we are. Here we are. Got the axe, got rid of the stupid watch. Gonna be a big bat up here. If he just sits there, this will be really easy. Wow, okay. Yay! Okay. Thank you for indulging me in this test, this very important test. Quit. There we go. I love Paul's quote. This will be a quote for the thumbnail if I was going to do that. Okay. Let's see here. Look real time good. Okay, sound. Oh, all right. Yeah. So timing's good. Good. Maybe. I mean, I think that's not a terrible reaction. I mean, that's. I started doing. I thought you already did that. Gaming has come a long way, though, and again, I hate to sound like an old man. In a lot of ways, it's not as good as it used to be. There was a purity in old games, a clarity of purpose. Gameplay was more important than flash and spectacle and feeling like you're on like a really cool Disney ride. It was more about the actual mechanics, performance of action. But Let's see. Okay. There we go. So that's about an hour and a half. Talked about the script, talked about what I'm doing, did 3 books. Today I need to go out. I thought I had more highlighters. I don't know where all my highlighters are. Oh, I know where they moved. They're in my backpack from a class I took. Okay. So I'm going to get those. Also, when I'm out today, I need to get like a manila envelope to donate my hair, my ponytail. There's actually 2 in here. There was enough. But filled out the form, donating it. But I gotta get something I can stuff all that into and mail it. Okay. I think that's it. So next time we talk, which will probably be 2 weeks from now, what is the calendar? Probably Sunday the 26th. Oh, wait. When is Phoenix Fan Fusion? Might be different because the Making Comics guys, Scott Lost and Keith Foster, are going to be coming into town for Phoenix Fan Fusion and staying with me. Yeah, 24th through the 26th. That should be in my calendar. Which means I don't expect to be streaming. So the next stream will probably be I'll probably do it Memorial Day, the 27th. So that'll be the day after they leave. I'll be able to talk about how it went for them and having them here. I'm not going to be doing Fan Fusion this year. I could go. They've already offered, like, we can carve out a part of our, our area for you, and I appreciate that, and I've done that in the past. I just would rather not this year. I prefer to do cons when I'm excited about having something new to offer. I have already sold the stuff that I've, been to PFF with. And I need to be focused on this. I need to, as referencing earlier in the stream, button chair about this, especially with a little bit of a soft deadline. I want to have a fairly finished, well, not just a fairly finished script, but thumbnails by August 1, because then there's art retreat. And that's when I will get to take reference photos of Scott Loss and Josh Campbell, 2 people that I'm going to use of the 6 characters in this story. To take pictures of them, I need to have thumbnails. To have thumbnails, I need a finished script. So I have, I got to stay on top of this. So yeah, probably what's going to happen is they're going to stay, and it'll be great. Like in the evenings, I'll be able to take them to cool places for dinner, hang out. Maybe we'll record one of their pods. Who knows? But during the day, when they're doing Fan Fusion, like, I will probably be sitting at home. It'll give me, like, this is my writing time, and I'll sit and focus on writing until they're done for the day and we're hanging out. So that's the plan. So then, yeah, Memorial Day, I'll be able to talk about how all that went and the current status of the script. I am hoping for, there should be big progress made by the next stream. Because today I'm hoping, I don't need to hope, it'll happen. I can make it happen. today's work will give me a roadmap of what needs to go, what needs to be fleshed out, and point me more towards this is what the final thing is going to look like. It won't be the final thing, but it'll give me a better picture of like, this is where I'm headed. And so I would expect all the revisions after that to be productive and relevant. Okay, let's see here. Okay, what's going on? I'm seeing here. I'm going to scroll. Where are we at? Where are we at? No pigtails. Gary, when's the last time you had a high and tight trim on the noggin? I never. I mean, there was. My hair has always been on the longish side. I've always preferred it longer. Not as long as it had been the past few years, but always more like, like this kind of shaggy, just like a little more length to play with. Though I think it would have been in like 2001, 2002. I was working as an accounts payable and receivable clerk for a medical device manufacturer. I was working almost entirely with women. Off the top of my head, I only remember one male I would interact with on a regular basis. It was all these women. I'm trying to say that you might have heard like a little bit of an eye roll in that, and I didn't mean it that way, but working with all women is its own thing, just like I'm sure working with all men is. Anyway, they were all, for whatever reason, like, you should try like really short. Try really short. Like, I don't know. They probably just wanted to see what it looked like. I don't know why. And I was, 25 or something. And maybe more susceptible to female suggestions. And so I was like, yeah, I'll try. Sure. And it was close. It was very close on the back and sides, and a little, not spiky on top, but it had a little bit more on top. It wasn't like a buzz cut, but it was like a buzz cut if you grew it out for a month or two. You know what I mean? And I fucking hated it. I hated it so much. I don't think I even have any pictures of myself when I did that. I just didn't like how it looked. Part of it is just because that's never how I've worn my hair, and it just didn't look right to me. But also because I just don't think, like, it just wasn't me. It just wasn't me, and it didn't look right for my face. Anyway, so that was the one time. That was the one time my hair was really short. And I immediately grew it out. It was like immediate mistake. I had a similar experience for a long time before I had like the full beard. My facial hair was, the goatee and mustache. This would have been mid 2000s. So like 2004, 2009, I decided to grow in some facial hair, mostly because I was tired of looking like a 16-year-old and or a girl. So anyway, I grew it in, and I got quickly sort of impatient with all the fussing you have to do with facial. Like you would think, I don't know, I think people, maybe women might assume facial hair is somehow lazy. It's actually, in a way, more of a pain in the ass than being clean shaven. Because clean shaven is just, it's very easy, like every day or every couple days, just shoop, 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 and you're done. Facial hair, there's like all this grooming, there's all this maintenance, there's all this like edge trimming. It's like gardening. Like you're constantly like fiddling and futzing with like what's going on. And I was quickly getting over it. So I shaved it all off. One day I was like, you know what? I'm done with the facial. I shaved it off, looked at myself in the mirror, felt like immediate mistake. Hated it. Hated the look of my unshaven or my shaved face. I was like, no. And immediately decided that day after shaving it, I'm growing it back right now. And I've never looked back since then. I grew it. And then it was even more. I was like, I'm just going to grow everything in. It reminds me of, it could be apocryphal. I'm assuming it's true, though. I remember my mom told me a story once about, she had read an account of a guy who threw himself off the Golden Gate Bridge or something to commit suicide, lived, and the part of the story that just always stuck with her is he was up there and he'd been thinking about it, like all the suicidal ideation, like just forever. He'd been like, I'm going to end. It's not working out. My life's not working out. Nothing's going right. And blah, blah, blah. This is it. This is my way out. Thank God. I'm going to get myself the courage to do this finally and end this hellscape that is my life. And he gets up there and he stands on the edge and he goes ahead and just kind of, steps off the bridge, and said that immediately he thought, oh, mistake. That's the reaction I had when I shaved my goatee and mustache when I was like in the, 30 or something. It's like, no. And that was also the reaction I had when I had the very close shaved haircut. I was like, no. Bad call. Let's see here. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to be doing that today. I'm going to do it before I leave to work on script. Let's see here. Possible. It was a good lesson. I don't blame them. It was a good lesson in learning to resist the impersonal demands of people who are not in your life and in theory shouldn't matter. Like it teaches you don't have to accept every suggestion that flies your way. You can say like, I'm good, thanks. 100%. Let me tell you something. In my experience, women can be just as reprehensible, if not as any man. It's just different. It has a different quality. And here's a hot take, but I've said this to lots of people in private life. In my experience, at least, I've heard women say, or heard women say to me, things that would never fly for a man to say, never in 1,000 years. And I think it's because I can only assume, I don't know. I can only assume it's because they think it's not sexism if they're a woman. For example, I'll give you two quick examples. Actually, I'm going to leave one of those examples out because it's too much. It's too much, and I don't want to get into it. But it was very, very sexual, and it was something where it's like I can't even imagine a guy saying this without worrying about getting fired, and this woman's just throwing it out there, like no big deal. But here's a good example. I remember once. I'm trying to be very careful about this, so I'm keeping it fairly vague and anonymous, but still can make the point. I've had a few jobs over the years where I've been lucky enough to be involved in interviews and hiring. Okay. And until my current job, just by luck of the draw or just the kinds of work I've been attracted to or whatever, almost every place I've worked has been overwhelmingly female. So I just until this current job, I was always finding myself with mostly female coworkers, which overall has been like, I like women and I like working with women, and I'm totally cool with it. Actually, it's been an interesting compare contrast now to work mostly with men and just sort of see the difference more clearly, because I had never had that my entire professional career. But anyway, I was at a job where I was doing a little interviewing, and then you would interview candidates, and everywhere you work, there'll usually be a couple different rounds of interviews with different people. And then those people get together and compare notes and talk about what you thought about this person. And I remember there was this woman that we had interviewed. It's been a gazillion years, so I don't remember. All I remember is that I felt like she was a solid candidate. Like, she was hireable. Like, she was certainly someone to consider. And we were comparing, at least from my talking to her and from her looking at her resume and her experience. And we were comparing notes with, I was with these other women who had interviewed her. And one of them brought up the poor condition and color of her nail polish, the candidates, color and condition of her nail polish, as very much like a disqualifying factor. And I found that sort of astonishing. I still find it astonishing. But to me, that's an example of, can you imagine if I somehow brought that up in this roundtable about this candidate? If I was like, yeah, but I mean, did you see her hair? Did you see her makeup? Did you see her nail polish? What was the deal with those shoes? Like, to me, that's totally inappropriate and also irrelevant to me, as far as I'm concerned. It was kind of crazy to me that you would, first of all, that you would nitpick someone with something like that. But also, it was astonishing to me that a woman is doing that to another woman. Like, I've never forgotten that. I don't know. It just was like, I don't know. That's an example. But anyway, I have many other stories, many worse stories, unbelievable stories, but I'm uncomfortable bringing them up publicly. Like, it's just too far. Let's see here. Sounds here like yours too. Look, grow it when you have it, and it may not always be here. Enjoy it while it lasts. How much of my life has been determined by women? Way too much. Everybody, I'm sure, how much of a woman's life has been determined by men peripherally? Too much. Any amount is probably too much. But like I said, cutting my hair too short was a good lesson in that, where it's like, you don't have to listen to every suggestion. Let's see here. Yeah, they can absolutely. No, it's a human thing. It's not a gender thing. It's a human thing. People can be awful to people and small and petty and whatever. But okay, that's it for today. Yes. Get my highlighters, put on some jeans, figure out where I'm going to set up shop today. Coffee shop, library, something. I don't know, but I just feel like I need to get out, get away, and someplace where I can make this the sole focus. Okay. I will see you all Memorial Day, 2 weeks from tomorrow. And hope you all have a nice Mother's Day, whatever your situation is. I'm just kind of managing windows here. And good luck with whatever your respective projects are, even if you're not working today because it's a holiday. I am working. See you next time. Bye-bye.